In this video, I'm going to go over all the books that I read in the month of August 2023. I was able to read 8 books this month, and even though it didn't feel like I read a lot, I'm really happy with the 8 books. As you'll see, a lot of them are pretty short, but it's summertime, we had family in town, and it is what it is. And everyone should be happy with however many books they read. Never feel bad about whether you read too little or whatever. Just be you. So the first book I read was No Enemy But Time by Michael Bishop. And this was probably the biggest surprise of my BookTube kind of career so far. I talked about this a little bit in my last video. I got this series I'm doing, The Masterpieces of Science Fiction, and there's 140 books on this list. And I've been kind of looking at the list and trying to find some books that I don't think I'd like or that have really low reviews, and try to get some of these out of the way so that as I get further into the series, I can kind of build some momentum and kind of have some of the better books at that point. And so I picked this one up just thinking I wasn't really going to like this. I'd never really read anything from Michael Bishop. It sounded weird, and I really like this book. You can watch the review on my channel. You can go back, and all these books that I'm going to go over have a video review, so you can get more in depth on them. But this one is about this kind of time travel that was done in a completely different way, where a guy goes back into I forget exactly how far, but it's like humans haven't even evolved yet, and you got these hominid species, and it's just really interesting. I liked the wit that Michael Bishop threw out in the book, and I can't wait to read more books from Michael Bishop in the future. So next was a really short one, Rogue Queen by L. Sprague de Camp. And this was just a fun, easy, short read, and it kind of had this adventure kind of this style, and they had some interesting aliens and interesting planet, and it's kind of set in a universe that L. Sprague de Camp has written in, and has some other books kind of tied into this kind of loosely based series. So I liked it enough that I think if I find some of those books in the future, I'd give them a shot and mix them in with some other different kind of science fiction. Next, I technically finished this in the month of August. This is The Martians by Kim Stanley Robinson. I'd been working on this for a while. It's a collection of short stories that kind of tie into his Mars trilogy. And I did a video review of the Mars trilogy as a whole, and I discussed this book. And it was interesting, some parts of it, but it was a letdown in many, many parts. But if you want more information on that, you can go to that video, and you can even kind of scrub through towards the end of that video where I discuss whether or not you really need to read that if you're reading the Mars trilogy. Then next, I guess I should mention, I attempted to read Dr. Mirabilis by James Blish, and I DNF'd it after about maybe a third of the way through, and not because it was a bad book or I didn't like the writing or any of that. It's more of a historical fiction book set in the 13th century, and it was all going over my head, and I realized I had no idea what was going on, so I DNF'd that. I don't think who knows, in life maybe I'd go back to it, but I don't think I'd ever go back and try to give that one a go. But what I read next was Black Easter by James Blish, and right after that I read The Day After Judgment by James Blish. These two books go together. You should read them together. I wouldn't read one without the other, and they're very short. Each one is like 100 pages, so I just read them back to back. And this, while it wasn't super science fiction, it had a few science fiction elements, had a lot of themes that had to do with religion and secular knowledge. There was kind of this occult, demonic presence in the book that was done pretty well. I liked the whole tone, the theme, the ideas of the books. and I highly recommend both of those. And then, looking for something a little different, I grabbed Starquake by Robert L. Forward. And this is the second book in a 2-book series that Robert Forward put together, based on these Chela, who live on this neutron star, this fictional alien race of these little bugs that evolved on the surface of a neutron star. And Robert L. Forward is a science master. He was actually a real scientist who has theories, and a lot of his work still holds up today. Very highly respected in the field, and his books are maybe light in some things like characters or dialogue or some of these things. The science is well explained by him. I think most people would be able to grasp most of what he's trying to describe. I had to look up some things to kind of make a little bit more sense out of some of the concepts. But overall, he's got a great style, and if we ever find aliens out there, I hope they're aliens like Robert L. Forward writes, because so far they're nice, helpful aliens that can help humanity out of predicaments. So next, I read A Case of Conscience by James Blish, and all of these, Dr. Mirabilis and Black Easter and Day After Judgment, and this are kind of in this loosely based series he did called After Such Knowledge. I really like this. Really interesting world building and alien building in the first half of this book, which is, I mean, each section of this book is like 90 pages, 100, maybe 180 pages total, and it was broken up into 2 parts, so the amount he put into the first half is amazing. I don't know if I've ever read anything that was that densely packed in 90 pages. Second half was still really great. Overall, loved the book. Highly recommended. It won the Hugo. Most people have probably heard about it. Great book. And then the last book I finished this month was The Wanderer by Fritz Leiber. And this was kind of a stinker for me. I didn't really like it that much. It had a lot of issues. I would just read or go watch my video review if you want more info on that. And now I'm going to do a kind of a different thing, try to pick out like the book of the month for me. And it was kind of, these two were probably my 2 favorite books of the month, A Case of Conscience and No Enemy But Time. But I think I'm going to have to give it to No Enemy But Time, just because it came out of nowhere. I picked this book thinking I was really not going to like it, and I really ended up liking it. I really like Michael Bishop's writing, and some of his other books, the concepts sound better than this to me. So if the ideas are better and his writing's the same, he might become one of my favorite new authors in a while. So that was the month of August, and what I'm reading right now is They'd Rather Be Right by Mark Clifton and Frank Riley. This is the lowest rated book on Goodreads out of this whole list of 140 books that I'm doing in this series of masterpieces of science fiction. So hopefully it's not as bad as everyone else says, but I'm kind of not expecting a lot, and just look for a video review on that one in the future. So once again, thanks for watching, and have a good one.